be kind of a long meeting, so we'll start. Roll call. Councillor Robertson, Councillor Grenier, Councillor Gardner, Councillor Perry, Councillor Osher, myself are all here. Councillor Kuhn joining us in the next 10 to 15 minutes. And first item on the agenda is the proposed development requiring zone district change, conditional zone or contract zone near 115 Stillwater Avenue. And is that?
That's Kyle.
Okay, Kyle.
All right. Hi, everyone.
Hi, Kyle.
So I should have gotten the memo that I had put together. So Connor Archer, who's here with us, I'm sure you'll have questions for him later, but I'll just give kind of a recap of where we are and how we got here and kind of, what we're doing as far as this potential zone change goes. So Connor had contacted us with an idea for a project on a lot on Stillwater Ave between Forest Ave and Kelly Road. The lot is currently in the low density residential district, and the project that Connor was looking to do was a child care center that did a whole bunch of different programming, from preschool to after school prep programming to various other kind of community activities. So it sounded like a good idea, but when we looked at the zoning here, the low density residential area, really that whole area west of 95 is what was the rural area, but the low density residential district is kind of that transitional area. So it doesn't allow a lot of larger scale uses. This area is primarily residential and not overly dense residential at that. Along Stillwater Ave here, between the town line towards Bangor and then going up towards Old Town, once it becomes more the commercial 1 district. There's also an overlay district, the Stillwater Ave Overlay. So the overlay's purpose was it was part of the comprehensive plan addendum in 2008 for the forest and agriculture. So the Stillwater Ave Overlay's purpose was to allow for smaller scale non-residential uses to go in this corridor. It identified that Stillwater Ave, although it was in the FNA at the time, but now the low density residential district. So although this area was residential and not a lot going on, that this corridor was more heavily traveled and that some smaller scale non-residential uses would fit in this corridor. So there's certain standards in place that a non-residential use would have to meet to be allowed in that overlay. So things like not being bigger than 2,500 square feet, not having more than 10 parking spaces or 50 vehicle trip ends on a weekday, things like that. It limits the scale of the businesses that could go in there. It's supposed to just be more of a kind of a step up from what we would normally allow as a home business. So it's kind of a cross between full-on commercial and home businesses. So when presented with that option, it seemed that what Connor was proposing was beyond the scale of that, and some of that I put in the memo. He's interested in something in the range of 12 to 15,000 square feet, and potentially more people than what the overlay district would allow, both employees and people coming to actually use the facility. So it seemed like it wasn't allowed, the use wasn't allowed in the base zoning district, in the LDR, and it wasn't allowed in the overlay district. So that really leaves the only potential option here for a zone change. And as it would be specific to this one lot, the most logical, kind of zone change to look at would be contract zone. We've done those in other places. There are examples. But so with any contract zone change, it's still a zoning change. The town council makes that decision, and it's a really long process that involves a lot of work and, you know, some financial, you know, capacity up front. So it's important to, you know, for the applicant to have this conversation up front, get the council's feel and understand if there's any desire for the project in that location. Does it meet the goals of the comprehensive plan? Does it make sense for that area? So those are the things that I sort of tried to address in the memo. You know, when you consider, so childcare centers are an allowable use in the LDR, but it's only childcare centers serving under 12 children. So this would be obviously much more than that. And so these types of childcare centers, like Connor is proposing, are allowed more in the commercial districts. So village commercial, commercial 1, commercial 2, economic development zone, and the university district. So there are other locations in town where this use is allowable. So with a contract zone, it's important to look at the specifics of the lot. Oftentimes there are unique circumstances that may warrant a contract zone, and that's what the comprehensive plan points to. So there are no recommendations specifically in the comprehensive plan to rezone this lot or any of the LDR lots in this corridor. There isn't really much talk of expanding the economic development zone either. There's one section on that, but it was referring more to the tech park and not for these, you know, kind of additional expansions onto Stillwater or you know, other places like that. So, you know, when you look at the lot and what would be considered a unique circumstance, I think what's important to look at is, you know, the comprehensive plan at the time of creating it identified certain places that were prime for redevelopment. If there was an existing structure there that was, you know, a certain use and it was in the middle of a, let's say it was a commercial use and it was in the middle of a residential district, it made sense to allow that to continue and to do a contract zone so that use could continue operating. It was already established in that area, and you wanted, you know, it was a benefit to the community and you wanted that to continue, so you do a contract zone to make it a legally conforming use. Or if there are certain proximity you know, circumstances where a certain use would benefit from being in a specific location, but you know, that use isn't allowed in that zone. So those sorts of things are what's important to consider. In this case, the lot is currently undeveloped. It's a little over 6.5 acres. And
Kyle,
there is.
Is
Yep.
it close? Is it closer to the Rotary or farther? Oh, I looked at the tax map and it looks like the bigger lot expands the whole side of Stillwater. So
Yeah, let me, if I can, I could share my screen so I could bring it up real quick, if that would be helpful. I cannot share my screen. I don't know if that's a function I can be given
You
permission.
can now.
Okay, thanks. Okay. So if you look here, here's Forest. Okay, so can people see my cursor?
No.
Okay.
Oh, yes, I can.
yes.
Okay, so, you know, Forest Ave, the little roundabout here, it would be this part of the lot down here. So it would be the lower part of this lot.
Okay.
So kind of down there. I think the updated parcel lines for this lot, when it was divided, they're yet to show up on our GIS. So that's why it's showing up still as one lot. But so it's closer to the Forest Ave area than Kelly Road. So you can see that the corridor in general is all LDR. From Kelly Road up to that point is pretty much all either undeveloped or single family homes. There are a couple smaller, businesses as you get closer to Forest Ave, the greenhouse, the, one stop, things like that. So it's not necessarily that the area is all residential or, supposed to be all residential. The overlay does allow for, some of those smaller scale commercial uses, but it's whether a facility of this scale would fit in with the character of the corridor. So I think that's really the important discussion for you as the council to have. As I said, the comprehensive plan doesn't directly recommend any zone changes in this area. The last mention of this area was in the 2008 addendum to the comprehensive plan at the time, and that was recommending to create the Stillwater Ave overlay at the time. The comprehensive plan, in 2015, didn't speak of any changes here to allow more commercial growth. And I do think it's important to consider that, this is an undeveloped lot. It has, potential for a lot of different things. You could have a clustered subdivision. You could have a number of small scale residential uses as part of the overlay going here. And by considering a contract zone here, it does open up setting a precedent for other people to come forward with other lots in this corridor to pursue contract zones for uses that aren't currently allowed in this area. And one of the purposes for keeping this area more low density and rural in nature to begin with was to kind of avoid that sprawl type feel, whereas you get further down Stillwater into the commercial one and you start getting into the shopping center and things like that. But at the same time, the 2008 comprehensive plan does recognize that it's a highly traveled road, and that, putting that overlay in place and allowing certain non-residential uses was important. So that's pretty much the recap that I have of the project for you. I'm open to answering any further questions or kind of expanding on any of that. But I do think, as I mentioned in the recommendation portion, that the key focus here is to consider the unique aspects of this project and this lot, and to make a decision based on whether or not, a contract zone is supposed to be a tool used rarely to avoid spot zoning, and whether or not this project meets those kind of classifications.
Let me just ask Connor if he wants to add anything to this before we start the conversation.
Well, I appreciate the great analysis of the plan that Kyle just gave, and I appreciate the opportunity to speak in front of you this evening, or afternoon rather. Kyle really nailed all the points that I was mentioning as well. It's a highly trafficked traveled road into not only through Orono but into Bangor. So there's a lot of traffic during the day already. It's also in a great location where we feel that it's not right in town, but it's also not completely away from town. So that really helps in regards to promoting a youth center with the schools, developing those partnerships with the schools of Orono, but also in other communities. We also are very intrigued by this property because of the connections it has. We have known the owner of this property for quite a long time through not only the organization, but also my family personally. We've supported her in purchasing her flowers for our gardens rather. So we really understand the property. I've taken a walk on the property with her on several occasions. We have both discussed the need of this in the community. the importance of it, that the importance of a facility like this that can impact children regardless of abilities and regardless of income or challenges with home life. So we really believe that this can be a positive way to grow to grow the Orono community, but also other communities around the area.
Thank you very much, Connor. Does any counselors have any questions or comments?
Yes, I have a couple questions. It's a wonderful project, Connor. Where are you? Oh, there you are. I read through your letter. I went to your website. I was intrigued. I'm interested in serving children. That's kind of one of the things that I do. I have a question for Kyle. I have two questions. Actually, and there's kind of process questions more than anything, Kyle. What is the reason that we can't expand the EDZ zone? Like, I mean, wouldn't that be an easier way to do it since there's no facility on this property right now?
Well, so, I mean, the council can make a zone change, but the same logic has to apply as we talked about with the contract zone. So it has to be consistent with the comprehensive plan. And so what I was saying is that the comprehensive plan doesn't really specifically recommend expanding the EDZ in this area. It talks about allowing for opportunities for a campus-like environment, which was kind of specifically talking about the idea of the tech park. I wasn't involved with those discussions, but that's from what I can tell, that's what that point was made for. Expanding the EDZ onto Stillwater Ave. So you can see on the memo with the image that the lot backs into the EDZ, but there's not really any lots with EDZ frontage on Stillwater Ave. So you would be introducing a zone.
It looks
in
like
the
there's
ED.
one
Well,
lot that's got Stillwater Ave frontage.
Right. It's more of it's not so
Driveway.
much a lot as more of an access way to what would have been the tech park.
Okay.
But so there aren't a lot of lots that would have businesses fronting on Stillwater Ave. I think it was the point. And by expanding the EDZ there, you're opening up that corridor, the Stillwater Ave corridor. The only mention of it in the comp plan is from 2008 when the Stillwater Ave overlay went into place. So if you start changing that to EDZ, it starts that's a real change to that environment. And maybe that's something that's beneficial and should be explored further, as part of future discussions and future comp plans. But I don't think that's something that's supported or really that consistent with the existing comprehensive plan.
Okay, my second question, and I was also thinking that that would also be an economic, I mean, if there was more economic development that wanted to come to Orono, that might be a good place to go, is to Stillwater Ave. But my other question was, if there's no facility there, Connor, have you bought this lot already?
That's a great question. So this meeting actually is more to get an idea of if this is possible. We have discussed with the owner that we're very interested, but we need to just have a general idea of if we are allowed or could be potentially allowed to purchase this land. So really tonight's goal is to have an idea, a general idea, so we can move forward with a process, knowing that it will require some work, and we're aware of that. We're aware of those steps need to be taken. Kyle and I have discussed those steps back and forth. So that's really the goal. Basically we've played a little bit of a waiting game, but hopefully we're able to move forward with this exciting project that will really impact the local community.
Thanks. So my other question is, if we do a contract zone, if we do approve a contract zone here, and the facility doesn't go in, are we stuck with a contract zone? And I'm sure, Connor, I'm sure you'll put a facility in, but just out of curiosity, if we do that, where the property hasn't been transferred yet.
Right, so the contract would be tied to the lot at that point, and I think both parties would have to agree to get rid of the contract. I don't know, Sophie, if you have any other.
I'm not sure it's quite as simple as just agree to get rid of it.
Okay.
I think it is a.
Sophie, we can't hear you very well.
Closer.
I don't think it's as simple as just agreeing to get rid of it. I think there's a little bit more of a legal background for that.
But I would add that the EDZ is a very different zone than the LDR. It's not that the two zones overlap in uses, and by switching to the EDZ, we would just be allowing this one thing that's not allowed in the LDR. The districts have very different purposes. So, for instance, the EDZ allows some multifamily residential as a ways to supply housing for people who work at some of the R&D facilities or bigger light industry businesses that would also be placed in the EDZ. Whereas the LDR is more of it allows single family, two family, condo style type development, and you might have more of a clustered subdivision. So it's two very different feels. So if you were to change to the EDZ, you're really changing it to allow this one specific use that's not currently allowed, but you'd be taking away a lot of other uses that are allowed in the LDR that would fit in with the surrounding area here. So this one use may, if you find that it fits in with the area, may work, but outside of that one use, the EDZ, is a lot of things like warehousing, self-storage facilities, multifamily housing, conference centers, things like that would not fit in with the kind of low density residential nature of the corridor.
Thank you.
So, are you all set? This is Tom Perry speaking, Connor. I'm really torn on this request. I'm very supportive of the concept, and I know of the good work that you have done already in the communities. But this seems like a very big project to go into a residential area. So that's my concern. I can remember so distinctly Evan Ricker, our previous town planner, and I'm sure Kyle would say the same thing, that contract zoning is something that's very special and is very rarely done. And I can remember a couple of times that we've done it, and the project sounded quite different than this. I'm thinking the Rainstorm project. That's their name on Main Street, where they were going into an existing building and had a limited number of employees, and it fit much better into a residential area. A 12,000 square foot building with, I can't remember the number of employees, but it seemed like a significant number of employees. Just doesn't feel quite the same to me for a contract zone. But I'm willing to hear what other people have to say.
So actually, Tom, thank you so much for saying that, because I always want to hear what Tom says, because if my mind's going a certain way, I always want somebody who's got some years of experience to be able to help me think this through properly. Connor, I am also a person, I've seen you on TV, watching you do a lot of amazing things, and I know that you're going to be doing great things in life. I think the concept is also great, but I'm also with Tom that these precedents being set, especially on that scale, I'm also a bit concerned of that area. Not that you're not going to do it if this doesn't come to be. You'll definitely find a way to make that happen. But it's just something that I think that, and like Tom said, let's listen to the rest of the council to see them weigh in. But that's kind of where I'm at also.
Yeah, there's so many things that can be said about the work that you do. I'm good friends with one of your board members, and she speaks very highly of you and of this nonprofit and this project. And I'm very supportive of the project in concept. The location is a bit of a concern, and I think that when looking at it from your point of view, certainly it makes a lot of sense, right? There's a piece of land, you have something you want to do, you have a personal connection with the owner that might make it easier to purchase and develop the land. From your point of view and from your organization's point of view, I completely understand why this seems like a win-win. But when we have to look at the flip side of things about how does it impact the town as a whole, the larger community, that specific area of town, and then the precedents that it sets, that's when things become a little bit more complicated. And I mean, I agree with the concerns expressed already about the precedent that it might set for future contract zones in that neighborhood. And the thing that we worry about is, for example, if we grant a contract zone to somebody and then we don't grant it to somebody else, then we start to get in some potential legal hot water about whether we're giving favorable preferential treatment to different people. And that can actually become a legal matter. So if you start granting all these contract zones, then you might end up with Wilson Street and Brewer instead of, the existing nature of that area of town. So that's one of the things I think probably all counselors are kind of weighing in their head right now. And then the other concern with a contract zone that's a bit tricky for council is that, it's forever, basically. I mean, unless there's a lot of legal maneuvering that's, so the zone, the contract zone follows the lot. And so if you decided at some point in the future to move to a different facility, a different community, then we would be opened up to a lot of potential businesses going into that lot that we may not think really fit the character of the neighborhood. So those are other considerations. So I read in the memo that it said that you hadn't exhausted other options in terms of location. And I think for me, again, being extremely supportive of the concept of the project and wanting to see that find a home in Orono, I would really love to see you look into some other properties and other zones in town before we go any further, because contract zones also carry a lot of expense in addition to all of the tricky legal prospects. There's a lot of expense involved in a contract zone as well. So I would love to see you look into some other areas in town and other properties before I would really want it to wade too deep into this question.
If you don't mind me adding, another component that I think was not mentioned in the report was the property and the value of it. The value of the property actually is very 46.65 acre lot, if I can remember, was actually very affordable for our organization. We've actually talked with the owner on several occasions that has actually turned down an offer to wait and see how this would pan out, because this is something she's looked into. We've looked in comparable areas of the town as well, including over by the Black Bear Inn, over in that area. The one concern we've had, especially in that area, is that probably not so much this year, but in other years, it gets very damp in there. Especially with the swamps. That's one area that we've looked at last year and I think 2 years ago as well. And that's been a concern of ours in that area, specifically in Orono.
Connor, was that the Next Links building? Did you look into the Next Links building that's already zoned for childcare?
We did not look into that. That is definitely, if I can remember right, that's quite a big space, probably much bigger than we would be looking for. So that's why we haven't looked into it.
Right. It might be a shared space, though. That might be a space that would be shared, and it's already zoned and ready to go, as far as I know. But that is another prospect, I guess, maybe for you.
I was really excited about this project because what the town is already doing for Parks and Rec. But one of my questions why I asked where the property was located was because I would feel more comfortable if it was closer to the Rotary, because there's a feel of more small businesses in that area. I agree with what's been said by other counselors as far as the contract zone. There's a lot of parcels there that could then turn into contract zones, and I'm really concerned about too many contract zones there, and would rather look at more of a zoning to more of a commercial area if that's where we went to at some point. So I don't think I would be in favor of a contract zone at this point. Does anyone else have anything to add?
Yes, I want to thank you so much for bringing this to us, because it shows us that there are people who really want to be in Orono, want to be building businesses here, and you've done such a great job with building this business, and I'd love to see it here in Orono. And I'm sure that you've looked at many different places, and you chose this because it appeared to meet your needs, except for the zoning. So I want to thank you very much for bringing it to us. I'm really excited about it. And I am always looking for ways that we could support businesses in Orono, and also support the idea of having, as other people, this is not related to yours, but the rest of the counselors and people who are listening know, I'm interested in making our housing close to downtown denser. And I'm always looking for places. And I've talked to the owner of this property. There were many people who wanted to put housing there, but of course it's not zoned, and there's no, that would be a problem. So, but I'm looking for ways that we can encourage business to come to Orono and show other businesses and your business that we're willing to work with you. So I'm so glad we're having an opportunity to talk about it. I love the idea. I think it's actually pretty close to the Rotary. I was there this morning to walk around, and it's not very far from the Rotary, and there are businesses right at the Rotary. And so I'm sure that there was wisdom in the people who did the planning and zoning and put it in our comprehensive plan. I wasn't there when they were making all those discussions to decide where the boundaries of each of these zones was. But I haven't heard anything compelling that tells me why we would not extend that zone one property over and have it meet Stillwater, especially when it's a part of Stillwater that's pretty close to that Rotary. So that already has businesses there. So I'm in favor of it. I'm in favor. I prefer that we don't have contract zones for individual properties. One, it makes it easier for people who want to bring businesses to Orono to be able to look at our zones and say, oh, great, I can do the things I want to do here. And that you've looked at the zone and it doesn't fit what you want to do. That's why you're having a meeting with us. I don't like the precedent that we make contract zones for every single property. However, I do like the idea that you want to build something in our community, something that already has a great track record and has a lot of support from community members, and that Megan knows of one of the board members. This is all good as far as I'm concerned. The only challenge is that it puts us in the position of making a change on this existing zoning that some other people spent a lot of time figuring out was in what they thought the lines should be. So I'm acknowledging that I wasn't around when those lines were made, but I haven't heard a compelling reason why we either wouldn't change the lines or allow a contract zone, outside of the fact that contract zones set a precedent that anybody can come and talk to us about anything. Although we don't have to say yes. So they can come and talk to us. We may not say yes. In this case, I vote for yes to try to help do what we can to help you put your business in this spot.
I think that thank you, Connor. First, I mean, I know Connor personally. He was one of my students. He was a great student. Great to see you. I was excited to get your emails earlier and to see this this come here. Um, having listened to all the comments, I don't think it's quite as simple as just deciding to move the lines. I think that's kind of an oversimplification, and I thought I think there's a lot more to it than that. The idea of the precedence really concerns me because this is, for the most part, a residential area, and opening this door could lead to more problems, as Megan pointed out, and Tom and Terry. This, this could create a large problem, and if we don't, we could always say no, but if we start choosing yes here and no there, and don't have real solid footing of why we're getting yeses and nos, that could be hugely problematic. So I think it's I hate to see that glossed over, and like Tom started with his comments, he's very torn about this whole thing, and I am too. Connor, I know the work you do, and I know you personally, and I'm so impressed with that. And there's a large part of me that wants to say yes to this, but I'm having a hard time actually forming the words. I'm still processing that, so I hope you understand. And again, I certainly appreciate your professionalism with all you do, and especially this is usual format for you. You're no stranger to talking to official groups in any capacity, and so I'm equally impressed with that. But I do want to thank you for bringing this and allowing us to have this conversation. So I'm not quite any yes on this at this point.
I agree with, oh, I'm sorry. I wanted to say that I agree with Sam's comment about, like, I don't want to gloss over the legal issues inherent in allowing a contract zone and then not allowing other ones around it. So I don't know if our resident lawyer or one of our staff could elaborate a little. I would not do it justice because I am not a lawyer, but might be helpful for the public and for Connor to hear how that can become an issue when you deny contract zones to other people.
I'll let Kyle take this if you want. It has to do with spot zoning and discrimination.
Right, so,
could be discrimination matters.
right. So I think it's important to realize that it's not with a contract zone. It has to be tied to the comprehensive plan in some way. It's not a matter of just saying, well, they didn't mention it then, and now we think it's okay, so let's do a contract zone. Maybe it is okay. Maybe it would be more beneficial to have, larger scale commercial development in this corridor, but there's nothing that supports that direction in the comprehensive plan. And a contract zone legally has to, there has to be an intent for that change in the comprehensive plan. It's not just a matter of opinion or what the town or the council or whoever maybe wants for an area. That desire for change in an area can lead to discussion that would then speak to a broader change for the corridor going forward. And you could explore putting, that's how comprehensive plans are formed then, so then the next time it's amended, now you've changed the direction of that corridor from maybe low density residential to more of a larger growth area for businesses of a larger scale. But yeah, in reading through the comprehensive plan, outside of just simply talking about contract and conditional zoning as a general tool for lots with unique circumstances or where circumstances warrant one, there is no specific mention of expanding the EDZ to Stillwater or to creating more of a commercial atmosphere on Stillwater Ave. So I think that's really the legal question that you'd be getting at. Is there any actual support in the comprehensive plan to do this?
Go ahead, Sophie.
I would just say that There are times when we come to you with projects that fit into that special circumstances, and those would be things like the rainstorm building, the Stonehouse Manor, where there were existing parcels with very unique circumstances. And that's, I think, when you can kind of get around the comprehensive plan not speaking directly to the change, but rather needing to not be inconsistent with the change. I think I'm right, Kyle. Yes? Okay. So I would follow up by just saying that this is an amazing project, and I think Connor has done a great job interfacing with town staff and trying to move this forward. I would offer that Dave Mylan works with folks all the time that are looking to bring their businesses in. So if this isn't the place for it, right off the top of my head, I can think of a couple of other places, including a parcel that is currently tax exempt that the town owns on Penobscot Street that might be worth looking at here. And if this is something that the town really supports, this might be right for a public-private partnership. So that I would just suggest that this isn't necessarily an all or nothing proposition, that maybe what we need to do is put the blinker on and change lanes.
Yeah.
And my question, Kyle, I just have a couple more because I'm not ready to let this go yet either, because I think this is a wonderful opportunity. And there's a history behind this business, and it's a great, I'm just, you know, that I'm going to advocate for children anyway. That's just going to be my thing. But what is the mileage? How far away is it? I can't tell from this map from the Rotary if that's the issue. And what are some things that we can do to facilitate or to help Connor? Like, does the building need to be smaller? I mean, what are some things that we can do as a, you know, as a town, as a council, to really help him find this? Or is it just simply looking for another location? And I was going to suggest Penobscot Street too. I thought it would be that's a great lot. It's like a 3-acre lot, I think, right, Connor? Or Dave.
If I could just add a little bit of historical perspective, I remember when the LDR was created on Stillwater, that we had a great deal of conversations about trips and how many trips are in and out. And when we were looking at things, we were kind of thinking like 50 trips at the top. It was supposed to be something that was very much didn't really impact the neighborhood too much and to overrun Stillwater. So I think that's, for me, that's where the issue with the contract zone is that commercial in that area, but not overwhelm Stillwater, which I think this project is a large project for that Stillwater area.
Cindy, you cut out just for a little bit there. Could you repeat that last full thought, please?
Sure. I'm just saying, I think this project is wonderful. It is. I think it's bigger than what was thought about by council when they were doing the LDR, because we were very concerned about overwhelming Stillwater with too much traffic.
But we do have 3 businesses there right now, right? Granted, they're seasonal. I mean, Bagley's is seasonal. The other one on the corner, the home, I can't remember his name right now.
One Stop.
That's it. Yeah, One Stop. So that's there. So I guess my question is, how far, like, where is it located and how far away is it from the Rotary? Is it miles? Is it, 100 feet? Is it how far away is it?
So I'm not, how far it is from the
that seems to
Rotary doesn't really, it's still LDR and it's still Stillwater Ave, in that area, whether, you're on either side there and as you go away. I can say it's about, I just looked it up, it's 1,600-ish square feet, maybe, or not square feet, feet.
From the Rotary?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, as
Um,
somebody mentioned that if it was closer to the Rotary, it would make more sense, right? So I was just curious how far away it is from the Rotary, and it's only 1,600 feet from the Rotary.
Right, but I mean, as far as what the conversation we were having about the contract zone, meeting the intent of the comprehensive plan, that doesn't really change whether it's, in this spot or a couple lots down. The same, I think, legal argument would apply. As far as the size of the facility and what could be done potentially. I mean, Connor's kind of, stated a rough size of 12 to 15,000 square feet. The overlay allows 2,500 square feet of floor area. So it's sort of like when we were talking about the zoning district amendment, going from 15 to 14 versus 15 to 5, or it's 15 to 2,500 is a pretty big jump in feel of a business. I mean, just for some reference, Friend and Friend is right down the road in the commercial 1 district, and that's roughly that size. So the overlay district was created for the sole purpose of bringing in some non-residential uses. But the point was that it was to bring in non-residential uses, but keep the same form as the existing residential uses. So you were allowing these commercial uses, but it was still at a scale that from aesthetically, it looked similar to a low density residential area. You were just allowing some kind of mixed use feel to go in there. But it was really, it's more of like a form-based code type of thing where instead of looking at the specific use, you're looking at the kind of impact of the development and the scale of the development. And that's how that 2,500 square feet and all the, the number of, vehicle trips per day, that's how all that was generated. It was kind of looking at keeping a specific feel for the corridor, whether it was a commercial use or a residential use. So I would say expanding, going up to 12, 15,000 square feet, with what would require a fairly large parking area of maybe 50 to 60 parking spaces. If you go by our minimum parking requirements, you're talking about a much larger facility than what would normally be allowed in the overlay district.
We've spent almost an hour on this, so I'm just wondering, do we kind of have a feel for where we want to be with this? And
Madam Chair, could I just add a quick question, or a quick comment to help you along?
sure.
I'm old, so Connor, I've heard everyone talking about all of the things, the great things that you've done, and they've known you for a long time. I know both of your parents when they were your age, so that just means, again, I'm old. I had offered to work with Connor on trying to find an alternative location, and what I had heard was that he really wanted to go through this process first to see if he could do, if he could go with Plan A. But we stand prepared to help him with Plan B if he's continues to be interested. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, David.
I just want to add one last thing too, just to clarify. I think everyone on this council, I think, is incredibly supportive of children and programs like this, and we're pro-business on this too. So, I mean, it's like, please don't confuse, Connor, I hope you don't misunderstand our hesitancy and our concern with not being supportive of this. We think I'm sure all of us agree, this is a phenomenal program and incredible work that you're doing. And yes, we're incredibly supportive of businesses coming into Orono too. So I just want to make sure that's perfectly clear, and that there's no chance for that to be misunderstood. Okay? Really, thank you, Connor.
Connor, do you have any questions of us?
I just wanted to add a couple more, or a few more points as I have one of our board members actually sitting across, just making sure I don't forget anything. Always planning ahead. So, one of the things that we really are, when we're looking at the building, the 15 to 20 employees number, that is a future down the road where you may have 5 or 6 there at a time, and then you may have 5 or 6 on the weekend. It's not necessarily where you have employees there all the time. It's more you have some part-time employees, but then you'd have some full-time. So I just wanted to clarify that, just because I know that number. It seemed like it could seem confusing of 15 to 20 full-time employees, but it's 15 to 20, whether it's some part-time, some full-time, different varying schedules. The consistent program within the facility would be the preschool-based programming. That would be the most consistent programming with the kids in the facility the most. The after-school program would be limited. So, for example, you would have this group of kids for 3 to 3.5, 4 hours. I just wanted to clarify that part as well, because I think that's important to take into consideration when looking at traffic in the facility, but also out, and how that could impact the overall landscape or the overall area. One of the things we also, when we've thought about this too, was the fact that we didn't want this to completely lose its identity with become a hot zone for stores or anything like that. We knew going into it that this was a potentially good location because of its separation from the shopping centers, from the busy intersections getting off of 95, especially in that area where there's a lot of traffic coming off the interstate in the old town into the University of Maine as well. So we really thought about that as well when looking at everything. It's just better for kids as well, particularly instead of down the road past the rotary closer to the interstate area. One of the risks that we find a lot of times is children with certain challenges like to wander. And the concern we've always had is going near the interstate is if they wander near the interstate more, even if there's a support in place, that could end in a serious consequence. Even if you put fencing in all those areas, kids can wander very fast, and that's something that I've studied on. We have an initiative that actually we had grant funding for to focus on that. Another point that I'd like to add with Penobscot Street is that it is close to a river, and that's that is the concern we have. There are children who unfortunately like to wander near the river, so it would just be appropriate. It would just need to make sure we'd have the fencing in place to make that happen. That's one of the things that we looked at heavily. So my final point is we did have a plan for a single wing done, because we were looking at just adding a smaller space at one point in a different area. The concept of that wing is actually very similar to the building, where it has different wings. So you'll have a wing on your left side that I think was like 4,500 square feet, and another one that or two wings actually. The one wing was 4,500, then the other wing would be 4,500 as well. And you have a center area. So I gave the 12,000 to 15,000 estimate as a wiggle room for space, especially when you figure out dimensions, the design, the architecture of the property. But really what intrigued us about it was the location, the opportunities it could give for the community of Orono, and most importantly, the safety, the safety, especially the potential that, it could have on potentially slowing down some cars over time. I will, admit some cars go faster on that route than probably should. And we think this could have a positive impact with the traffic and potentially helping with keeping the speed limit down over time, especially where there are still neighbors, residencies. So we see this also as a positive, impact with that.
So I know this has gone on, and I just want one thing is thank you, Kyle, for mentioning the parking. I didn't hear the factoring of that this might be a lot of parking because of the requirements we have for parking. But it sounds like parents are going to be dropping kids off, and that there isn't. It maybe that there is not as much parking needed, even though our zoning would say that there should be that much parking. So that's one thing that obviously you're not going to hire an architect to make a design until you have a site. So we can't see pictures of what you've envisioned, but that would be interesting to learn what amount of armored surface, because we're concerned about, the parking. It ends up being an armored surface, and it ends up, taking a lot of land out of what would be absorptive for rainfall. So anyway, I thanks Kyle for mentioning that, and that would be something. Again, I'm still supportive. I know there's a lot of challenges that other people see. I'm with you, Connor, that this is a better place for kids than right by a river and by a lot of traffic. And I'm hoping we can help you find this a home here.
And I have just one more question. This will be the last, because I know you've got a lot on the agenda. What for the Rotary in regards to the distance? I'm not sure how want to word that. Kyle, what you said definitely makes makes a good amount of sense. In regards to the distance, the distance, but why isn't it necessarily based off of the distance? I guess it's my question. I'm not the rezoning expert. I've learned our zoning expert. I learned a lot through this process, but I just don't know if you could elaborate more on that.
Yeah, and I think it was me. I did bring up how close it was to the Rotary, just because it seemed like there was less residential there. But I'll let Kyle.
Yeah, my only point was that as far as the zoning district, it's low density residential on either side of the Rotary. That the distance from it wouldn't really come into play from the comprehensive plan perspective. The comprehensive plan doesn't speak to low density residential lots closer to the Rotary versus further from the Rotary. So I was just bringing it up to say that there was no distinction really. The zoning district itself doesn't change until you get further north up Stillwater and you get into the commercial 1 district, where Friend and Friend are, and then University Mall and things like that. So yeah, I think the points I was making really apply to any lot in that low density residential district along Stillwater that's in the overlay district.
Connor, I would just say that this has kind of just been a conversation. You still can move forward with applying for a contract zone. It's just, we usually try and have these conversations in case you don't want to spend the money for to do all of that. But if your building looks kind of like a home, so not a 3-story cement building, that may help. So this doesn't have to be the final stop, but this is just council giving you kind of an idea of what challenges you may see if you bring a contract zone to council. So
excuse me.
Sure.
I do think it would be unfair to Connor to have him leave this conversation not knowing that the majority of the council had some fairly significant concerns about a contract zone on this lot.
Yeah, I think that is fair. So is there any last comments before we move on? All right, hopefully, Connor, we've given you something to think about, and hopefully Kyle and Dave can work with you to kind of get you to a next step on this. So, with that, I will move on to the proposed marijuana establishment ordinance and next steps. This could be a kind of quick conversation, correct?
Well, I don't know. So the marijuana ordinance went to public hearing at the last council meeting, and normally it would come back here to talk about all the public comments. You did not receive any public comments. The next step would be to put it on the next council meeting. My understanding is that the council wants to vote to send it out to referendum, and I will tell you that is what went on the postcard, that this was the step before a referendum. So, but here is the time if you wanted to make a change to the ordinance. If it's a substantive change, it would need to go back through the process, which we left plenty of time for that. Or it's time to move it forward and then for Kyle to begin to make his wonderful presentation in the community information meetings that we had talked about having in the lead up to the March election.
I'm seeing lots of heads shaking. Yes, referendum. Tom, you're muted. You can get him.
There. The only is, I have not been one who was wildly enthusiastic about this whole concept. However, I do think our staff has done a really excellent job of putting together some guidelines and some ordinances around this concept. My only question is, we had talked at one point in the process about the referendum putting the 4 different marijuana related operations out as separate questions. And I'm wondering, we're still thinking the same thing. My thinking is that people may very well be supportive of retail establishments, but not want a production facility in the community. And maybe I'm wrong on that, but what are we thinking the referendum might look like?
Pass that one to Kyle in terms of how the ordinance revisions could be reasonably packaged. I think that how we put it on the ballot could change, kind of like the option A, B, C, D that we did earlier this year. But I think that the way he's constructed the ordinance, he's really worked to kind of weave it together. So I'm not sure how that's going to work, Kyle, and I hate to put you on the spot, but I'm going to.
Yeah, I mean, from a use standpoint, I mean, there are 4 distinct uses, but the standards themselves are sort of, intermingled within the ordinance. I mean, they're kind of sectioned off, so I don't know if there's a way to on the ballot reference certain sections versus the whole thing. I'm not sure how that
could we have a referendum that lists the 4 different things, and if you vote yes for say retail, then it's the ordinance with the retail. If all 4 pass, then it's the whole ordinance. But if production didn't pass, then you could just take that out of the ordinance that exist. So it would be 3 different options, in the ordinance.
Yeah, I mean, I think so. I mean, the performance standards section is broken down into the 4 establishment types. I mean, so as far as the process of actually doing that, it would be easy to X out, one of those sections. I don't know from a legal standpoint, if we had the public hearing on the whole ordinance already, if it would be, and then you took one of those sections out, if you'd have to go back through that process again.
I think that what might make sense right now is to get a sense of, is that something that council wants? Do you want it to be in pieces? Because if you do, the next place that I think Kyle and I would go is to the town attorney to get some guidance on how to structure this to meet your goal, as opposed to try to parse out specifics right now. And it might mean that this comes back in November for you to send it to referendum. You've got plenty of time.
I understand the logic behind what you're saying, Tom, that in some ways, conceptually, these are 4 different business types, and there might be people who are supportive of one type and not another. The only reason that I don't feel as compelled to break apart the ordinance is because the basic conceptual sort of safety nets built in they apply to all of so the ones that can be applicable to all businesses are applicable to all businesses, right? The ordinance is written so that whatever type of business it is, it will not have a visual or odor or et cetera, negative impact on that surrounding community. So I guess I'm not as concerned about breaking it apart for that reason, because there are a lot of controls built into the ordinance packaged together, regardless of what type of business it is. And then because some are allowed in some zones and not other zones, that also is another layer of control. So I think that if in concept, folks were pretty comfortable that any type of those 4 businesses wouldn't impact negatively their experience of their neighborhood or town, that they could be comfortable with all of them being passed.
Yep.
I'm in agreement. I
That
don't
sounds reasonable.
Okay. So Cheryl, are you in agreement to move it forward or as
Yes, to
one
move
ordinance?
forward as is.
Anyone else have any comments? I got a thumbs up from Sam to move it forward as is. Thumbs up from Lori. Thumbs up from Terry. So I guess it's move it forward towards referendum as is. So,
We will put this on the agenda for the October 19th council meeting. And I would be remiss if I did not recognize the incredible work that both Kyle and Dave have done to get us to this point. I mean, they took road trips, they did a lot of research, and they talked to a lot of people. And I think they did a really good job of trying to channel the discussion that council had. This was not easy for you. And I'm just so impressed with my staff.
Yep.
I'd like to thank them both for not quitting.
Well, there's still one workshop to go to, so.
So it was a monumental task. I appreciate you all for taking it on. Moving on to town services during the pandemic.
So I'm going to be incredibly brief here and turn it over to Lori quite quickly. But we wanted to take some time and begin to cycle through some of our more public-facing services to give you a sense of how things have changed and what the trajectory is with our town services. Lori, when I started vetting dates for the whole crew to come in, she has vacation scheduled. So I asked if she could go a little bit earlier, because the library is probably one of our most public-facing, service-oriented, as opposed to response-oriented departments. And we're doing things in a kind of different way that we feel very comfortable with. but we want to kind of check in and give the opportunity for council to give us a little bit of feedback. And with that, I am passing the mic.
Thanks, Sophie. I want to start by introducing our newest member of our staff, Morgan Daigneault, who bravely came across the country from Kansas in mid-August. She cushioned some time to quarantine to make sure she was safe to come to work, and started working with us on August 31st. She's fitting quite well, but I thought I'd give her just a minute to say hello.
All right. Hi, can you hear me? Is it okay? Okay. Well, I just wanted to say hello to everyone, and I absolutely love it here, and everyone has been so welcoming and warm and helpful. So I'm really glad that I got the chance to live near here and work here. So yeah, I don't know if anyone had any questions for me or or just wanted to say hello back.
Hi,
Welcome
Morgan.
to Orono.
What's that?
Fitting right in, it's wonderful.
Welcome to Orono.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So she's, Morgan isn't living in Orono yet. I think that's one of her goals. She has a number of animals and had a hard time finding a place here. So if you know of a rental that takes cats and a little dog, please keep her in mind.
Yeah, I am stuck in a lease for a while, but I'm keeping my eye out for things that pop up here. So one day.
Thanks, Morgan.
Thank you.
So I've put together a presentation. I'll try and share my screen here. I don't think I'm sharing that right, am I?
Yep, yes you are.
Okay. Are you seeing my presentation or the council agenda?
No, we're seeing your
Great.
mask.
Okay. So Orono Public Library in the time of COVID. Just want to make sure you know that we are continuing our services despite the fact that we are not inviting the public in at this time. And I just wanted to give you our timeline, where we've been, what we're doing. So as of March 16th, we closed the library to the public and continued, online services, but suspended in-house services as well as interlibrary loan. I'm going to try and move this. So I guess, I'm sorry, I'm not looking at you. I'm looking at my presentation. So as of October 23rd, all staff started working remotely. We locked our outside book return and no returns were accepted. That was because the Minerva system also shut down. So we weren't getting anything from them. We weren't sending anything out. All libraries in the state pretty much closed down. So we worked at home for a couple of months, found quite a bit to do. We were surprised by that, but we ended up having a lot to do, including learning to provide services remotely and virtually. As of May 18th, we all came back to the library, continuing to do the things that we were doing at home. On June 1st, we were able to open the book drop and accept returns. So we had 2 months worth of returns coming back. We were also able to accept requests from our patrons for our collection. Minerva was not up and running yet, so we had to limit to what we had in-house. June 9th, we started our curbside pickup service, which we talked about before. You approved the locker system that we purchased, and that started up on June 9th and is going pretty well. On July 13th, Minerva was back online and we started our van delivery service yet again. So our online services, we were lucky that a few years ago we started ramping up on online services. We've always been a member of the download library through Main InfoNet, which allows patrons to download audio and ebooks. As of April, we added our own proprietary collection where we purchase titles for just Orono Public Library patrons. Not just. Orono Public Library patrons get first dibs on those titles. If you are using that cloud library at all and you see a popular book, sometimes you can see that you're going to wait months for it because it's just like a library book there's only one copy or maybe there are two, you have to wait in line. But by having our own collection, that pushes Orono Public Library patrons to the top of the list. So even if you see something that looks like it's going to take months for you to get, you may actually be the first one in line, which is also true for physical books. Our RB Digital Entertainment service has been very popular. Acorn TV is the #1 popular thing through that, and I'll show you that in a minute. The other things that we've always had, the Digital Main Library provides a number of databases and learning tools. Ancestry.com has been free to anyone in a public library for a few years now. And when COVID hit, they changed that and made it available for free for anybody in their home. So then we've had Penobscot Times Archives, and there are some new services that I'll talk about later. So here's our chart for the past year of our online services. You can, or just a few of them. You can see that ebooks and audiobooks have pretty much remained steady, but you can see that yellow line of Acorn TV. People were streaming like mad when they didn't have access to library materials. I think the use of Netflix and Amazon has gone up as well. So in the summer, we offered virtual story times. So a number of our staff members, you'll see Louise there with Pippi, she did a reading of a chapter book. Pete and his daughter Hazel did a number of story times for us, and Jeanette did as well. Those were all done from home. Mark Billick has been a longtime volunteer for us in the children's room, and he also stepped up to do some story times. And it was an opportune time that Counselor Gardner made a connection with some individuals who wanted to do something called Story and Drag. Because at that point we were having some staff transitions. Louise became circulation manager, and while we were waiting for Morgan to come on board, we needed some help with children's services. So 3 individuals each did 3 story times throughout the summer on the theme of diversity and inclusion. And all of the books came from our collection and were selected by Louise. They were wildly popular. It was really an opportune time to present it. So thank you, Megan, for making that happen, or helping to make that happen. So other programs we did, we continued working with the Economic Development Department as well as Parks and Rec to present concerts. This year they weren't on the green, they were on the screen. Performers sent in videos of their band or their individual performances, and they were put out on the town's YouTube station once a week. And citizens were encouraged to go to local businesses or to use the library services in order to get a QR code to watch on that particular day. We had a number of book discussion groups that were already scheduled that we then put on the Zoom platform, and those too were very well attended. So what are we doing now? So staff is in the building Monday through Saturday, where we are currently at 3 full-time and 2 part-time staff members. We continue our online services, local and interlibrary loan materials, reserves, and checkouts. We've had 2 Main State Park passes that have been used pretty constantly all summer long. So that's wonderful. We're doing our curbside pickup 4 days a week right now. And there are many people who miss browsing our collection and have a difficult time browsing online and maybe don't really know exactly what they want. So we're offering a new service called Personal Assistant, where patrons can get online and fill out a Google form to request items, or just say this is the kind of thing that I'm interested in, and library staff will collect some things up for them and set up an appointment for them for our curbside pickup. We also have 3 volunteers that are taking items to people who are either homebound or have limited transportation. Right now we have 6 or 7 people who are taking advantage of that service, and as I said, 3 volunteers. So we also find that some people find our 1-hour slots in our lockers a little inconvenient. So we are starting a Saturday walk-up service, walk-up window service. We just have Public Works here today, paving a little section in front of one of our front windows, and we will let people come on Saturday, as long as they have things waiting for them, and we'll be able to give them to them at their convenience through the window. So here's what our lockers look like in case you haven't had the chance to use this service. 4 lockers with Bluetooth programmable padlocks, hard to say, that are used pretty constantly, and they are reserved at least a day or sometimes 2 days in advance. Sometimes hard to get a slot. And we've got 60 to 80 appointments a week with over 300 patrons utilizing the service at this point. This is our schedule. We all are also using the acuity scheduling just like the town offices, which is working out really well. So this is our curbside room. We've taken over the community room, and you can see that there's a lot going on here. So if we start at the top left-hand corner, we go clockwise. That first shelf is items that are waiting for our patrons and waiting to go into the lockers. The next shelf is items that are going out to other libraries, patrons from other libraries. And then we've got totes and bags that every day we fill before the delivery guy comes to pick them up. Then there's the checkout and check-in station. There's Louise checking things in and out. And behind her is a cart with materials to reshelve. The table in the back is where we stage the items to go out into the lockers. And in the right corner is our to-do checklist on a whiteboard. So we all know what's going on and what still needs to happen. That's just been really a great way to organize our day. Then in the bottom corner are the returned items from the book drop, as well as the delivery totes. And right now we're quarantining items for 72 hours. So we have these cardboard recycling boxes that we put in the book drop so that we don't actually have to handle the items when they're returned. We just leave them in the box for 72 hours and then check them in. And on this cart, again, there's staged items for pickup before they're checked out and go to the table. Then you can see where the future walk-up window will be, and we will remove the boxes that are stacked there that are the extras for the book drop. So that's just the curbside room. So that's what's going on there. We all take turns there, although Katie is our part-time worker who does most of the work there. And then there's lots going on outside of that room as well. So moving forward, what are our programs? There's Miss Morgan, who has been doing weekly story times Thursday morning at 11 from her office virtually. And those, we're gathering statistics, but they look like they're being enjoyed by a number of people. She's starting the 1,000 Books Before Kindergarten program. It's a national program encouraging parents, of course, to read to their children before kindergarten. And in order for parents to keep track of that, we're going to be starting a reading challenge mobile app called Beanstack. So people can get that on their phones and keep track of what they've been reading. And from my understanding, I haven't seen it in action, but it's not just for children, adults can use it as well. Tumble Books is another program. It's a database of children's ebooks that are always available for multi-users. We're collaborating with Asa Adams for that. So we're purchasing this subscription. It will be available to all library patrons as well as all students at Asa Adams, as well as teachers as well. There are, I think, tests and other kind of curriculum-oriented pieces to that as well that teachers can use. We'll continue our Zoom book discussion groups as well as guest speakers. We've got a monthly newsletter that goes out, and if you want to subscribe to that, please look at our website. There's a way to easily subscribe to that. Pete is keeping up with Facebook and Instagram to keep everybody informed as to what we're doing. So outreach, as I said, we're working with Asa Adams in a number of ways. We're also working with the Orono Middle School and High School. We're looking to get as many students library cards as possible. We've done that with the middle school in the past, and we're expanding to the elementary school as well. They also have weekly scheduled locker appointments outside of the regular appointments. So those librarians come down at least once, oftentimes twice a week, to pick up items for students and teachers as well. So then the 4-H Ambassadors Program, the University of Maine, we've participated in that before, but usually it's in-house. This year, of course, it will be done virtually, but we'll be promoting that, and this year's theme is Mission Mars. Dirigo Pines, we also have always collaborated with them. 4 to 5 times a year, they come down and choose 50 to 60 large print books to supplement their collection there at the inn. We've collaborated with the activities department in order to start a delivery service for those who can't get here. So safety precautions, what have we done so far? So right now we have plexiglass surrounds around both circulation desks. Wes is in here every morning sanitizing with the electrostatic sprayer. We're all wearing face coverings when we're in the common areas, as well as when we're processing things for loan, not just our patrons, but for interlibrary loan. Of course, we're washing our hands frequently, using hand sanitizer. We each have our individual workstation, but also cleanable keyboards for public access, as well as whatever shared computers we have. We will have 3 self-checkout stations for when we are eventually opened again. And as I mentioned before, we are quarantining items for 72 hours based on Maine State Library's best practices for public libraries. Also, for the past few months, there has been a research study going on that was instituted by the Institute for Museum and Library Services, as well as OCLC and the Bedell labs. So it's an ongoing study. It seems like it's gone on forever to see how the virus actually lasts or lives or dies on library materials. At this point, it is inconclusive. We've gotten a number of different suggestions as to how long items should be quarantined. We are going with what the state is recommending, which is 72 hours, but we're still waiting to hear what else what the Realm Project has to recommend. So what do we look at when we're making the decision to reopen or not? So the first thing, as I mentioned, is the state level. We're looking to the governor's office. The Maine State Library has a weekly Zoom meeting for librarians to get updates as to what we should be looking at the state level. I'm also in contact with Chief Lowe on a fairly regular basis about local recommendations. And as you remember, during budget season, there was at least one position that was not filled for us. So we still need to meet how many staff members we really need and maintain that before we consider reopening. We're trying to respond to community feedback. Right now, what I'm hearing is that people are appreciative of what we're doing and they're being very patient. We are not getting the pressure to reopen, and they seem to appreciate that we are considering safety of both public and staff. Of course, we're always looking for the guidance from management and council. So when all of those things kind of come together, then that may be the time that we really seriously consider it. So what are the challenges in reopening? I've given you a few pictures here. One of them is, enforcing the mask mandate. In this community, I don't think that would be very difficult, but it is a consideration. The other things to think about is in our 6,000 square foot library, it's recommended that we only allow 5 people in at a time. When people are in here, they're browsing, they're picking things up, they're wanting to read the newspaper. So what do we do with that? One idea is to have a cart somewhere where we ask patrons to put things that they have browsed rather than reshelving them, and then we quarantine them for 72 hours. Then that leaves that unavailable for anybody else for those 72 hours. it would be a challenge to support that physical distance recommendation. The other thing is we have quite a bit of furniture, as you can see in that picture on the right. We'd have to move a bunch of furniture out of the building in order to maintain that physical distance recommendation. As far as computers go, you can see there, those are 2 public access computers. That does not meet the standard of physical distance, especially if someone were browsing the shelves. So I believe that we would need to remove at least 3 of our 4 public access computers, move that one into a space that actually had enough space. Another challenge is usually when someone comes in to use a computer, they often need help from staff. So again, the challenge of keeping that physical distance while trying to assist someone with a technology question. We might look at scheduling for computer use. That's one thing that we've talked about. Another in-person thing, considerations, would we go to appointments only? We need to be regularly sanitizing high-touch surfaces as well as bathrooms. Not quite sure what we would do about that. And you all know that we are a hotspot for middle schoolers after school. So I don't see how we would be able to accommodate what we usually see after school. And as far as library programming goes, our face-to-face programming, I'm challenged to see how that would work here. One thing that we have talked about is the possibility of having appointments for families to come in one at a time. But again, that's on hold at this point. So that's what I've got for you today. I'm happy to answer any questions or take any comments. Thanks for listening. Thanks for being supportive.
Nice job, Lori.
Thanks.
Really good. Nice job.
Looks like you're doing a lot.
Yeah, I'm really just turning over in my head the logistical nightmare as someone running a restaurant with these safety sanitary protocols, the logistical nightmare of a library. Wow.
And also, Megan, she does it without alcohol. You work in a bar, you know, so it's a big difference there.
But people aren't touching things and putting them back afterwards. They tend to drink them and go.
That's true. That is one of the things that we've been trying to tell people when they question it. It's not that you're just taking a book out, you're actually returning it. So what do you do with it when it's returned? And this Realm project that I talked about, they're really kind of stymied because they can test how the virus lives or dies on a surface of something, but that doesn't account for someone actually reading a book and whatever might fall into the book. And then does it stay alive in there? Or anyway, there are just so many different nuances to this that it's tough to know how to handle it.
Yeah, but Lori, I think you've done a great job dealing with this pandemic and maintaining the level of service you have. And I think you're very much on the right track with the concerns you have for eventual opening.
Thank you. Yeah, I would say the staff probably puts more pressure on themselves than anybody else wanting to provide the service that we've always provided. We are usually very accommodating, so it really went against the grain to tell someone they had to be here within an hour to pick up an item. But we're getting used to it. So yeah, we're moving along.
Well, given the nature of the library itself, especially in Orono, I think it's true in most communities, but it's such a hub of the community. And this was such a loss with the pandemic. And I think I'm going to echo what everyone else has said. You've done such an incredible job to maintain this hub and working within very strict safety parameters. So well done to you and to the entire staff. And welcome, Morgan.
Thanks. I'll also mention that a number of libraries in the state have reopened. I can't give you the number, but there have been a number that have reopened. And in the past week or two, 4 have closed again because of an outbreak in their community. 2 of them are near Sanford, of course. But I guess I don't want to go down that road of really making a lot of changes to open only to find ourselves closed again.
So I actually wanted to say welcome, Morgan, also, and to also just say that you chose a great community, because our library is definitely a place within our community that is very valued, and we're fortunate to have such a great grouping of individuals who work there. You guys are amazing, and so it's always good to add another great person into the fold.
Thank you. Yeah, I can just, in the short time I've been here, I can really feel how much the community loves this place. So it's really awesome to be a part of that now.
Well, thanks. Again, thanks for your support. It's nice not to feel the pressure. I know other communities have felt the pressure from council and management to open, and that kind of puts you in a tough spot. So thank you.
Thank you, Lori. Sophie, do you want to tell us about town office?
I'm actually going to have Belle do that very, very quickly.
Hi all. So the town office, we've been accepting appointments since about June 8th. Recently, we increased the frequency of our appointments from an hour long to half an hour long on Tuesdays and Wednesdays. That gives us the opportunity on Mondays and Thursdays to still continue to get caught up from the weekend mail on Mondays, and then to get caught up on whatever we haven't done on Tuesday and Wednesday on Thursday. There's still a lot of activity with the Dropbox and with mail, and we just finished tax season. Well, we're still collecting taxes, but the majority have come in. And the big push right now is voting. Absentee ballots, we have, this morning we were at 1,790 requests. And I suspect that we have gone over 1,800 today. We received our ballots yesterday, so we are madly stuffing envelopes today. We hope to get them in the mail on Friday, which means that most people should start seeing any absentee ballot that they have already requested on Monday or Tuesday. We are trying to get as many people through the door and absentee voting as possible. We've got 4 in-person absentee voting days scheduled. The first will be on October 15th in the council chambers, and that will be from 7 a.m. to 5:30, or 7:30 a.m. to 5:30 p.m. And then the next one will be on campus, and that will be on the 17th. That's a Saturday. We're going to try and catch the students between 11 and 3, just to make sure that we are providing them every opportunity, but at the same time accommodating the university's need for us to not entirely shut down their field house during a regular work day. The third in-person absentee day is going to be 7:30 a.m. to 5 p.m. on Thursday, October 22nd. And the final one will be on October 30th from 7:30 a.m. to 5 p.m. Now, typically that Friday would be within the closed period for absentee requests without a reason. But the governor's executive order has said that any in-person absentee request that comes in before 5 p.m. on Friday does not have to have a reason associated with, a special reason associated with it. So after the 30th, then absentee ballots could be requested on the Monday and even the Tuesday of election day, but you would have to have a special circumstance, traveling unexpectedly, you're ill, not able to make it to the polls. The polling location is indeed the field house on November 3rd. We have limits based on the state. We can only have 50 people within the field house voting at one time. That means that we are trying to explore other ways for us to do voter registration that's not actually in the field house, so that the voter registration doesn't count against our 50-person totals, and work on, again, absentee ballot vote early is the best way to ensure that we can get everybody through the polls on Tuesday. We will begin processing those absentee ballots on the Tuesday before the election, which is October 27th. And that means that gives us plenty of time to get in all of these ballots. There's a lot of extra processing with absentee ballots. We are very careful to make sure that we match a ballot with a request. Signatures are checked. They're checked into the state database. There is there's no way for you to commit fraud with the way that we are very careful with it. And also it means that it takes a lot of extra time. So that's why we're going to start on Tuesday, the 27th. We won't be doing running any totals, of course, until 8 p.m. on election night. I tried to give you guys a very fast rundown on that. Are there any questions before I move on? Because I've got another topic to discuss.
Belle, how does the in-person absentee day work?
So that'll be up in the council chambers. People will come to the Main Street door of the town office, and they would come in just like they would come in to vote on a regular day. They'd have to fill out a form, which is requesting an absentee ballot, and then we give them the ballot. They can either vote it at that time, and then they would drop it into the drop box, or they would be able to take it away with them and just return it before 8 p.m. on election night. I should mention that we do have a ballot box right outside the town office door under the portico. So if anybody is concerned about returning their ballot through the mail, then they can come drop it off at the town office anytime, night or day, and that is secured by lock and key, and only our town clerk has that key.
Oh, I'm sorry. Just quickly, is this information going to be available to the public? Like, so all of the different, it sounds really complex. Voting sounds complex to me this year.
So all of the information is on our website in kind of a multiple different ways. We just determined our in-person absentee voting schedule. I'm not sure yet if we've gotten it up on our website because that was finalized yesterday late afternoon. But yes, there's a lot of information out there. We're putting it out on Facebook as much as we can, and also on our website, and trying to make sure that people understand all the different things that we have to go through in order to process absentee ballots so that they are secure, and then also what voting will look like in person on November 3rd.
So thank you. I'm so glad to hear about those 4 dates. I actually only ended up being able to write down. I realized after you started talking that I wanted to write them down. So I got the 22nd and the 30th. I missed the first 2 dates, but I'm sure you're going to put them up and announce them.
The 15th and the 17th, if you'd like to write them down.
The what on the 17th?
15th and the 17th.
Okay, great. And I heard that you vote that Shelley from you vote that Shelley Crosby, our clerk, was going to be on campus at the field house on the 17th. Is that true?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. And so these 4 days are at the field house, or they're at the town office?
The Thursday and Friday dates, which are the 15th, the 22nd, and the 30th, are at the town office. The 17th is on campus.
And you'll have the hours posted?
Yes.
Or you know the hours already?
7:30 to 5 for the ones at the town office, and 11 to 3 for the ones on campus.
All right, that is so great. Thank you so much. And 1,800 is a fabulous number for the number of people who've asked for absentee ballots. Just for, because of the state's request that we centralize our voting, there was a study done that for the 20 years prior to the centralizing about how many people showed up for voting in Orono. And the highest number in the last 20 years was in 2008 for the general election. It was 5,820 people. And so personally, that's my goal, that our town comes in again with a very high number of people voting. And so I'm really glad to hear that we've already got 1,800 requesting ballots.
Well, and as a point of reference, there were 1,700 absentee ballots requested. I believe it was that same election. That's the highest number of absentee ballots we've processed before this election. So already sitting at 1,800, we're feeling pretty good about getting a lot of absentee requests in.
I have a hunch you don't have to worry about smashing that record this year.
Yeah.
So Belle, I just wanted to offer that if you need help of any kind with this, I know that sometimes you look for people to kind of help. I'm available. I'll make myself available. I know people are doing a lot of stuff, but I know this is a tough thing. And I just want to make sure that if you need any help, please reach out.
Terry, you have just been committed. We need lots of help. Absentee ballots are labor intensive.
So just let me know what you need. I'm flexible in my schedule. I mean, I've got meetings obviously, but I can always fit things in somewhere.
Excellent.
Thank you.
What else you got for us?
So the final update I have for you is about the Black Bear Orono Express. As many of you might know, the shuttle is something that we have been running for several years. It runs between campus, Orchard Trails, and downtown, goes out on Park Street all the way to the cornfield, turns around, and then goes back on campus. Due to the pandemic, our ridership numbers are way, way down. They're down 81%. We have made the decision, Terry has sat in with us on a couple of meetings, and part of the decision is driven by the driver shortage, not just a rider shortage. But we are going to reduce hours from 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. Monday through Friday. The route will remain the same until the end of in-person classes in November. And then, as would be our normal course of operations, when students aren't in class, then the shuttle doesn't run. And we're going to be working pretty hard on looking at a January return to service that will make the best, most efficient use of our bus and our resources.
That sounds good.
And so I want to add to Belle's comment that when we get to that next level, I will be coming to you, fellow counselors, to give you what's being looked at and to kind of get your thoughts behind stuff and bring it back to the committee.
Great. Thank you for picking that up, Terry, among your other duties. Anything else, Belle? Nope. You want to go back under the screen? There you go. That was quick. So thank you for those updates. Those were very informative. We've moved on to brief town manager update, and I think we might be tabling abatements, but I'll let Sophie talk for a minute.
Well, my understanding, texting with the council chair, is that we need to move this meeting along. So I have, Joe had hung out with us until about 5 minutes ago, and Dave, but we'll bring this back for discussion next time.
Thank you very much for being so nice and flexible. I just think that we got it. The special council meeting has still got several things on it. So with that, I will adjourn the special council meeting. So the first item on special council meeting is roll call. All councilors are present. And we're moving on to new business, Order 20-133, order amending the motion previously adopted on August 10th, 2020 to awarding the bid for the town office carpeting second floor project to Home Depot of Bangor for $14,000 to be drawn from the approved FY21 capital budget. And I think I take a motion and a second on this, then we get a motion and a second on a revision. Okay, so I'll take a motion. Thank you, Sam.
Second.
And second, Cheryl. Sophie, do you?
My suggested amendment was to say order amending the motion previously adopted on August 10, 2022, awarding a bid for town office carpeting second floor project to Home Depot of Bangor at a price not to exceed $15,000 to be drawn from the approved FY21 capital facilities and municipal operating budgets. Facilities in parentheses $14,000 and up to $1,000 from the municipal building operating budget.
So I need a motion. Somebody would move that amendment.
I move that amendment.
Second.
Okay. So I'm taking a vote on the amendment. So are you recording them, Sophie?
Yes, I am. Are you ready?
Yep.
Councilor Robertson?
Approves.
In favor. Approve.
Councilor Grenier?
In favor.
Councilor Gardner?
In favor.
Councilor Maynard?
In favor.
Councilor Perry?
In favor.
Councilor Kuntz?
In favor.
Councilor Osher?
Favor.
And then do I need to take a vote on the original order?
Yes,
As amended.
as amended.
As amended.
If you're ready. Yes? Okay.
Yeah.
Councilor Robertson?
Yes, in favor.
Councilor Grenier?
In favor.
Councilor Gardner?
In favor.
Councilor Maynard?
In favor.
Councilor Perry?
In favor.
Councilor Kuntz?
In favor.
Councilor Osher?
Favor.
Motion carries 7-0.
Okay. Moving on to Order 20-159, order accepting grant funds if awarded from the Center for Tech and Civic Life, CTCL, to be used to cover additional expenses related to the 2020 presidential election, and further to authorize the town manager to expend said funds in accordance with grant requirements. Take a motion, please.
Move.
Second.
All right.
Jump in front of Bell here simply because of time, but this was a simple grant application that was made to CTCL after hearing from other communities that they had received funds and having discussion with the Secretary of State's office. We were originally awarded $9,000. We were made aware early this week that they made an error in their formula for the distribution, and it's really $159,025 to assist us with the election. So the parameters of this, I put this in your background, are very specific. Staff is right now working with the University of Maine to determine what they need for the election. My plan would be to expend these funds using the purchasing policy that we have right now. So if there's any single item more than $5,000, it would come back to you unless it was an emergency purchase.
That's quite an error from 9,000 to 159,000.
Hmm.
First time in 20 years that that's happened to me.
Anyone else have any questions or comments? All right, hearing none, I will ask Sophie to take a vote on Order 20-159.
Councilor Robertson,
In favor?
Councilor Grenier,
In favor.
Councilor Gardner,
In favor?
Council Chair Maynard,
In favor.
Councilor Perry,
In favor?
Councilor Kuntz,
In favor?
Councilor Osher.
In favor.
Motion passes 7-0.
Thank you. Moving on to Order 20-160, order purchasing an electronic message board from Bangor Neon of Bangor, okay, in the amount of $30,100 with 50% paid from the Healthy Maine grant and 50% paid from the Downtown Transit Oriented TIF funds. I'll take a motion, please.
Move approval?
Moved. Second?
All right. Sophie.
So I want to make just one clarification that this is the Keep Maine Healthy grant, not the Healthy Maine grant. Evidently, there are two. But we've kind of talked around this sign before, so I think we've had the discussion. So I don't want to waste people's time. But if you have questions, I'm happy to answer them. This is the sign that's a digital sign that will go out front that we'll be amending the ordinance to allow for, but the expense has to happen in October.
Sophie, quick question. When do you think the sign will be up in
We are hoping,
in Orono, huh?
we are hoping this, I would love to see it before October 31st, but that the goal is as quickly as we possibly can.
Sometime this month. Thank you.
Best laid plan, Cheryl, just saying.
Sophie, is it moving closer to the town office?
Yes, I'm thinking that we want to put it near the where the tree was.
Yep.
And then the current sign would be removed and the fire department safety signs would probably go where the current town sign is on the other side of the apron.
Okay. Sounds good to me. Does anyone else have any questions or comments about the sign?
Nope.
I have a comment.
Yep.
There was some discussion before we brought it to this meeting about other people in town who are right now prohibited from having electronic signs, wanting to do the same. And so I just wanted to state that this is clearly something new for our town, and there's a lot of reasons to do it, and yet it's changing what has been the precedent. So I'm really glad to see that our town's able to do some updating and changing from what the historic use was, because as we had this discussion earlier in this meeting, there's a lot of trepidation about making changes that someone in the past believed was the right way for our town to be. So I want to salute everyone who's supportive of making this sign and using this funding to do something that will be very helpful in alerting the town, people in the town, what's happening, because it's electronic, which gives it the possibility of cycling through various messages, whereas a sign that we have now can't cycle through, so there's less information available. So I'm supportive of it, and I'm also supportive of the fact that it's really outside of what we've done in the past.
Thank you. Anyone else have anything? I think this might push the sign ordinance closer to the front as we get people that are jealous of our sign. So with that being said, Sophie, will you take a vote?
I will. Counselor Robertson,
In favor.
Counselor Grenier,
In favor.
Counselor Gardner,
In favor?
Council Chair Maynard,
In favor.
Counselor Perry,
In favor.
Counselor Kuhn,
In favor.
Counselor Osher.
In favor.
Passes 7-0.
Great. Go forth and buy a sign. So now we're moving to an executive session. Before we go into an executive session, we do have one counselor that has to leave at 6:45. I would, if counselors can hang with me for a little bit, I would like to just start the conversation, and maybe we'll let Sophie go home and we'll catch Sophie, if that's all right with people.
Yep.
Because I think it's important that we're all present for the meeting. So
Cindy, do we need to check in and check? I mean, do we need to check out and check in again, or are we okay?
No.
I sent folks the meeting link for the executive session, and I just sent it again, so it should be at the top of your email.
And just a reminder also, this is executive session, so we need to make sure it's executive, meaning that there aren't other people in the household or in rooms that can hear this.
yeah.
Because normally we are locked in, we are sequestered.
Would you like to start the conversation today, or would you like to, what's Monday look like, Sophie?
Monday is comp plan implementation. I'm gonna guess, depending on how talkative you are, it's probably about a 45-minute, about an hour long meeting would be my guess. We're gonna talk about the Sailor development, where we are and next steps for that. We were gonna talk about Marden Park, and where we are with that, and where we're gonna talk about Kyle's plan for community outreach involving medium density residential zone. So it might be more, it might be closer to an hour and a half.
Okay. I'm open. What's council's preference here?
Are all council members able to be at the Monday meeting?
I can. I'll be there.
Is there anybody who, maybe I should have said, is there anybody who can't be at the Monday meeting?
Well, maybe a little bit late, because I do like to get home from work and.
Oh my goodness.
I know, right? Tom.
But you could come in a little bit later.
Yeah.
I'll be there no later than at the latest 4:45.
Okay, all right.
So I guess my question is, would, Councilor Gardner, that's your committee. Do you want to push this a month, or what would you like to do? It's updates. If people would feel.
I don't know. I mean, are you asking to tack it on to the existing meeting or to push the existing meeting?
My fear is that we'll be right back in this place if we try to tack it on to the existing meeting. I'm asking if you want to push your meeting for this, or if you want to, how do we want to do this?
Do I want to push my meeting a month ahead and kind of stall that workout because we can't all be available tonight at after 6:45? Not particularly, but it is important that we're all present for the executive session, so we'll have to do what we have to do. But I am not opposed to doing both on Monday, but then again, that's just me.
Do we have another individual that needs to leave at 6:45 on Monday?
Nope.
It's
Everybody, just tonight. It's just special tonight.
Well, let's do it Monday.
So let's do both on Monday.
Yeah, I don't want to delay the work of the committee for this. So.
Good, that makes sense.
No,
We're just planning a long evening Monday.
Yeah. Thank you very much then. So we will adjourn this special council meeting. I appreciate everybody being flexible, and we got a lot of work done tonight, and I appreciate it.
Motion to adjourn.
Yep.
Thank you. Tom seconded. Everybody raise their hand. Bye. Thank you.
Good night, everyone. Thank you.
Good night.
Right.